it so inconsistent?
Construction is hard.
Welcome back to another episode of Construction is Hard. We split this recording into 2 episodes to make it easier to digest. We hope you enjoy part 2 of Brian and Gary's conversation with Toby from Classic Electric and Consulting. When you finish listening, check out constructionishard.com to read Toby's article and find more episodes.
Shifting perspectives and forming the right partnerships. And I'm really excited to get into this piece of kind of the article with, you're basically kind of breaking it down into this ideology of technology. But now how do you go about that when you're starting to evaluate a software, or in other words, when you're starting to potentially partner with or work with a software provider?
Yeah, I want to play off something that you just said. I mean, I consider us all friends. We see each other at a lot of these events and stuff like that. But it's very apparent that the way we run Classic does not line up with your guys' software, right? Like,
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason why we can't
I
all
forgot
be friends.
I forgot to mention this. Toby and I have known each other for years and years. We've never once exchanged a dollar.
No.
He's not a customer. It's simply, you have these ideologies and such. And yeah, our whatever business I have been helping work with or work on it, and whatever you guys have been doing, we haven't crossed paths, and that's okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it's okay. Right? Because we would fail each other. Right?
Yes.
And neither one of us want to do that. So on that point is perception of software technologies and stuff like that. And I think the biggest problem is we look as contractors, as leaders, we look at software as just a simple tool, right? We look at it the same way we look at a service truck. We look at it the same way as we look at a bender, ground rod driver, or whatever you want to call it. We just look at it as a tool, and we need to not look like that. Your software relationship should equal your banking relationship. It should equal your, insurance and your law firm relationship. It is a true partnership. You're putting your whole operation in their hands, and so you guys have to be working together. And I see a lot of contractors, they hold back on telling their software providers, how they do stuff. And, they're very guarded, saying trade secrets and stuff like that. And we all have our ways of doing things, and we all have our, little secret sauces. But at the end of the day, we still all do the stuff relatively the same, right? Like on a grand scale.
And here's the thing too. I used to always laugh at a previous organization that Gary and I stumbled into each other with. I get it. You start talking to a stranger in these tech companies or whatever, and I've been on the other end of this a lot, where it's like, well, I'd like to show you that. I'd like to show you my spreadsheet, or I'd like to show you the system that we built, but you're going to need to sign an NDA first. And I used to always laugh in my head, because my boss at the time was spot on. He goes, "We can't do that." And I go, "Well, why not?" And he goes, "That means that we can't share our stuff with them either." And he goes, "We've talked to hundreds and thousands at this point of these companies. And if we sign that, now neither of us can actually openly share what we've accumulated." And I go, "It's actually hurting them. They think they've got the golden goose that they don't want to show anybody. But it's actually, in reality, these tech companies can accumulate this information across multiple organizations, and they want to share it with you, or they should. They should want to share it with you as a potential partner, potential customer, potential prospect, whatever it might be. But it is, you come up with these walls in the beginning, and I totally get it, because there's a lot of shitbags out there. Let's just
and if you don't share the information with the tech company, you're missing your opportunity to put better the software and tailor it to your needs. How is the software company ever going to, fully fulfill what you want to have done unless they know what you're doing and how you want to see it, right?
Well, you talk about your guys' spreadsheet and but also John's approach to put it out there. No one's going to be able to actually, because they don't have the processes, they don't have the discipline.
Yeah, well, this was going on 10 years ago now, I think. And we were looking for a platform. We were looking for a software company that could help us manage our workforce management processes. And I came across Labor Chart, and I gave them a call and ended up talking to Ben Schultz, the founder and CEO. I didn't know it at the time, but I was about to become their second customer. But having no idea how big the Labor Chart was.
We put on a good show.
And I was elated. Finally found something that I knew was going to fit, was going to work, and it was a skeleton of what it became and what Rivet is today.
Yeah.
And I was looking at version 1, and right away, within 10 minutes of Ben giving me the demo, I was ready to buy. But I couldn't get version 1. I had to get version 2, because they weren't going to support version 1 anymore, right? So I get version 2, and I had this spreadsheet. Everyone has this great spreadsheet, right? Well, it turned out that my spreadsheet had labor curves in it, and it was one of the first ones that, in the industry, I believe, that really showed, your planned bell curve out and things of that nature. So I told Ben, I said, I'm going to send you my spreadsheet, and this is what, if we can get to a point where Labor Chart can do it, the spreadsheet's going to be great. Sent it to him. Didn't hear anything from him for about a month. And I'm thinking, well, I guess my spreadsheet isn't near as cool as I thought it was, Okay, and which is fine, thinking, well, I'm going to learn something here, right? And I did. But about a month later, Ben called and he said, we looked at your spreadsheet. And if you will work with us on this project, then we'll let you use Labor Chart free for life. Well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. At first, blush at it. So I go into John Westfall's office the next day, and I'm explaining to him what Ben's offering to do, and it was an educational moment for me, because are we going to give away this proprietary information, right? To your point, and let the world see what we're doing here at Westfall that's better than anyone else? And John said, yeah, we're going to do it, because not only, it is good information, it's going to get out there, and the contractors have to be able to do it. And I don't think many are going to do it anyway.
After the process and the discipline.
Right. And so we did. We accepted his offer, and we worked closely with Ben for the next 5 years as a contractor, helping tailor Labor Chart to our needs, which turned out it was to everyone's needs. There are no secrets.
It's
I found that out. I mean, I worked in the industry for 42 years in the same company, inside the same four walls. And, you talk to peer group members and that. We're all doing the same thing. And no one's doing it perfect. The outcomes are all the same. And so there's nothing really to hide. Get it out there. Let's make the industry better, right?
Your secret sauce is not in your spreadsheet. It's not the magic ratio that you ramp up or ramp down. It's not the magic insider productivity numbers that you gathered. Trust me, I've been in all the four walls of all these different companies, and everybody has a little something. Your secret sauce is in your people and how they do their processes, and how you as a company drive forward with your culture to adopt and stay on the cutting edge.
That is so true. That is, if it's not broken, break it, right?
Mm-hmm. That's your secret sauce.
That's a pretty good attitude.
It really is, and it's funny because there's a lot of, in coming back to Toby's article here, it's hitting on it. It's, you got get it out there, right? Because it's not just going to improve the industry. It's going to provide you first. It's going to provide you a better solution potentially, as well as eventually maybe the rest of the industry. But guess what? You're already going to be on to the next thing. You're guaranteeing that you stay one step ahead by partnering with someone that will help propel you that direction.
Partnership is key. And I laugh because, especially as subs, right? We're subs, we're not generals, and we get so mad when the general tells us how to do our job. Like,
Right.
yeah, what do you mean we can get this much conduit in a day? Like, you're a general, you have no idea. Yeah, we don't want to lean on our softwares who have done this multiple times with multiple different companies, and we don't want to lean on them to let them explain to us how it should be done.
I was fresh into this industry, and I mean, all day, every day, I just talked to contractors about workforce management. I would compare it to my past experiences and then to my experiences in the Army. But I still would go into calls and these meetings and kind of go, well, like, let's see what this group has to, like, you tell me. And then finally this group goes, hey, Brian, that's not how we go about these evaluations. That's not how we do these initiatives, yada, yada. And the COO of the company goes, hold on a sec, let's stop right there. Hey, Brian, this is our first time undergoing an initiative like this. It was a workforce management initiative for them at the time, but he goes, this is our first time doing this kind of an initiative. And as you just heard, that's how we think it should go. Hey, how many times have you done this? And I, I don't know, hundreds, might be 1,000 at this point. And he goes, that's my point. How about you recommend to us what you've seen success with? And I go, oh, and it was one of those genuine. I was like, oh my, I went home feeling so good. I was like, oh my God, Bill thought I was the cat's meow, but it's so true. And I look back on that now and I go, we do from a software. Now I'm speaking like from a software provider service, stance. We do an injustice when we don't at least recommend and share. Look, I've seen a lot of groups do this, and this is how and this is how and who and why they go about it this way to find the best success that I see. Take it or leave it. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of going about it. That's okay. But at least recommend the baseline and then let somebody say, no, I want to do it a different way. And you mentioned in your article, there's this piece that's like, to summarize it, there can and there is this stigma out there that, hey, these software companies are out to get us. Right. Last night, Gary and I are standing in the circle and we're smoking a cigar. It's lovely weather down here in Florida. And Gary's decades in the industry. And we stand with this group. And as soon as they ask us, what do you guys do? And we're like, oh, well, we help with the workforce management software. They go, software. And it was like you had leprosy. I mean, it was just like, well, we're going to come over here, and it was one of those, we just looked at each other and chuckled because it's like, cool. Yeah. In 5 years, there's a good chance that this conversation could have gone a lot different and your company would be much further ahead because all we want to do is share. Gary started to try to share best practices with them and they're like, oh, no, my spreadsheet's great. And I was like, yep, hey, that's okay. But there is this stigma out there and I totally get why. And I mean that. I'm not just like, I am not thrilled and I don't like how a lot of software companies operate. And at the core of how our natures go, I'm not proud of it. And we want to do it different and we're trying to do it different at Rivet. Gary is on my team. We have another contractor on my team that's got 25 years experience. That's hard for me to find, but we're trying to change the way we go about it and bring a certain level of just transparency and commitment and just value and focus and end states to the way that we go about this stuff. And, these contractors listening, tech companies listening, you know when you talk to somebody, are they a shitbag or are they somebody that can actually help you? It's right there out. They put it on display, right? And sometimes I feel like putting my ignorance on display when we do this podcast, but it's so true. You'll talk to these guys or gals and they're going to let you know real quick. Are they really concerned about you and your business? And are they willing to tell you no? Are they willing to tell you you're not a good fit for my product or for my service? And if they're willing to do that, it should make you want to work with them even more, but you're not going to find a lot of them that go out there. One of the best business leaders I ever came across, his favorite thing, he would go into meetings. Can you imagine this as a contractor, right? You sit in a big board meeting and it's like towards the end of a big potential deal. And this guy from the seller side would walk in and he would go, why the hell would you guys buy this tool? And he just left it at that. And everyone's like, and it was the truth. In that moment, everyone decided right then and there, we have to have this because it's going to help us with A, B, and C. And they verbalized to themselves better than anybody could ever tell them or sell them on. Or they went, yeah, you know what? I still don't believe it's going to do this for us. And here's why. And it was like, yep, you're right. And in one question, the whole thing would be resolved. And I was like, if the world had more of that, I think we'd all save a lot of time and do a lot of better. But what I'm trying to get at is I don't want to rag on my fellow software, colleagues and such. Software's not out to get you guys. We're building a business here at Rivet, no shame, no disclosure here. But, Gary and I, we work and help build the customer side of it. Our sales side of the house listens very acutely to the feedback we give on who's successful with their tool and who isn't, so they know truly who to go talk to and who they might be setting up for failure if they were to actually do business and exchange dollars. And so I can say firsthand, my livelihood as an individual rides off of my customer's success. We cannot afford to have people buying the software and leaving a year later. It destroys software companies, and I think it's something we need to share with contractors, that it's not a sustainable business model for us. Our boards don't want to see it. Our investors do not want to see that. They would much rather see more conservative, true, sustainable growth numbers, meaning people stay with the company.
Yeah.
Well, and like us, we don't do a ton of advertising, right? We're all word of mouth, and that's what software's, it's a lot of the same way. It's a lot of word of mouth, and to your point, these software companies, they're not going to survive if someone's dropping them every year, right? Because I know they're all different and they have different price points and stuff like that, but at some point, you're not making your money on that first month, and some big contractors will be like, man, I'm paying these guys tens of thousands of dollars every month. They should be, killing it. It's like, well, it also took a lot of money to get you to sign, and it also takes a lot of money to monitor your account and all that stuff. Like, it's
people don't realize, like, in a software company, you have so much monthly burn to try to be on the scene, to try to have people join, and depending, there's different groups out there, but not to go down a rabbit hole. The money, it's funny, it does not go the way contractors imagine. And I didn't believe it until I got on the inside and helped build these software companies. Of like, oh my gosh, you're constantly fighting to try to get head above water. And yeah, you've got groups that are investing. I'm not saying we're not going to get into all that, but the fact of the matter is, like, yeah, the money is not just raining. Every time you hire one more engineer, one more product, one more support rep, you've got to bring on multiple customers to sustain just having that person in your business. It's the same as every growth company. I mean,
and that's why being in a partnership, contractor software, is so important. And contractors, like, you don't want to leave. We've changed softwares multiple times over the last decade and a half, and it is a painful process. It is not simple. We have a really good culture on technology, but you want to kill that culture really quick. Like, I guarantee I'm going to land in a couple days. I'll land back home, and the first thing the whole office is going to say, oh, great, what software are you bringing back now? Right? Like, who did you meet this time, and how's it going to save the company? And so, so you don't want to change, but you got to tie in that partnership, and both sides want it, but you have to be able to open up and stuff like that,
it's a give take.
It's a give take.
Yeah,
right?
and it's in short. I hear this partner side, and one of the things that I want software companies to be able to provide better, and what contractors should ask for when we say partner, is ask the software companies, hey, how do you guys see people be successful with this? Right? They bring a lot of repetitions in this specific area that they focus in. If you think about it, ask them to share where they see success. And if you smell bullshit, hey, turn the other way, because it'll come out, but you'll know. It's so clear.
Yeah. So the other big thing under the perception too is, I think a lot of people think that it's just a tool, so they don't actually put a champion out there. You've got to have a single person, like we talked about before. You've got to have someone that, can be your champion, your go-to, the communication between the contractor and the software.
Someone has to take ownership.
Someone's got to take ownership of it. And you want to make sure that you don't go too low level on that. It's got to be a high level person. But And all companies are different because I know some companies that have great CFOs, but you also want to make sure that your champion and your decisions aren't solely based on the CFO because he's just looking at money.
Yep.
Right. And operations are typically going to say, oh, this is where we can save. This is where we can be more efficient. So just that's the other thing is you just want to make sure you're cautious on who your champion and what department your champion's coming from.
And it's a software company should be able to recommend and respect. There are executive sponsors that can be there for the key moments, the decisive, the tiebreakers, so to speak. Also understanding what they should seek from a tool. What are the benefits that you should demand and expect from this tool being in your company so they're aware of the value. But there's also this aspect of, we see this a lot. This PM is pretty tech savvy. They're going to handle it. And it's like, I appreciate that, but that's not fair to the PM either. That's not going to work. And it's like, well, no shit. The rest of the PMs didn't adopt it because it's their peer going, hey, why aren't you using this tool? And they go, pound sand, buddy.
Yeah.
And that goes back to our culture piece and everything and why you mentioned you got to go through these in order. But you can't just fire and forget either with this stuff.
Yeah.
It does take a once a month. I have my teams once a month. We want to get back in front of the people that are really trying to identify the value of the tool to the business. And that takes someone at a business perspective level once a month or once every 3 months even. Make the time to stay close with your partners. And, our favorite thing is at these conferences. That's a great time to reach back out to your software partners, your vendors, and say, hey, I'm going to this conference. Are you guys going to be there? I'd love to catch up and discuss what's new in your world, what's new in ours, and make sure that we're still on the right end, we're still on the right side of this thing. And you're no time out of the day. That's what these are for. And a lot of times it's your operational leadership at these conferences anyways. So why not? Embracing, so taking us back, keeping us moving here. We're going through the big 3 steps, right? And we've gone through the culture and we've gone through the perception or how to view software as partners and through your evaluation. And now we're getting into the ideology piece of process. And this is my favorite one, but I want to turn it first back to you, Toby, on how did you identify process when you were writing this? How did process become like one of the big 3 steps or ideological mile markers?
As one of our software integrations, they use it as a sales tool. They're like, map out your process for us. And so then that way we can show you how we can be more efficient and all this other stuff. And what they didn't realize though, is like, they forced me to write down my process and I didn't have one. I mean, I guarantee most contractors don't have processes. They'll say they do.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because like it's in my head or it's in this guy's head or we have some notes over here somewhere and but they don't truly have actual processes. And then there are some of those, 1%ers out there that do have detailed processes, but for the most part, most of us don't. And, I'm not going to lie. We don't have processes even today. Like our processes aren't great, and so, making sure that you can say, hey, I don't have a process or our process is flawed or just straight up sucks. It's extremely important because once again, your software is your partner. You should be able to tell them, hey, my processes aren't really detailed, so I don't know how we actually do it. Let me, and so, the biggest thing you can do is just stop and reflect on all your processes of, because you do have processes, like things get done.
Right.
It's just not everybody's on the same page. And it's hard. In fact, I'm thinking the next thing I want to write on or talk about is like, how do we do process? Because I keep asking questions about processes and stuff. And a lot of people are, again, with tech, high level. And I'm like, man, I'm where's zero?
Mm.
Right? Where's zero at?
It's education, communication, and discipline.
Yeah.
In documentation.
Yeah.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Constantly repeat. And that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
We haven't caught up in a while. Our implementation process at Rivet now we've got the first phase of 3, the first third of it, we don't touch the software. It's all just process discovery, mapping those processes, identifying processes, mapping them. So when we say process, that means different things to different people too.
Yeah.
The way and I'll show you, you'll love this. The way that we map them out is swim lanes, and we go through who is doing what is the event, the action, who is doing what, and then how are they doing it? What tool, what technology, what method, where do they look? Is it in somebody's head? Is it a verbal conversation? Is it in 5 different spreadsheets? What do we call those spreadsheets? How do we color code those? And we go from start to finish, and we have 20 some plus workflows that we go through and just map them all out. And that's one of the things that our customers now walk away with. And I'm self-promoting and bragging here on purpose. I'm proud of it. They walk out with, when you say, I look back on my business, we have our processes suck. If somebody asks a contractor that I've worked with to implement workforce management software, they go, my workforce management processes are on point and they're documented and I've got them all here. And that's one of the things that I would love it if more contractors got to walk out of more implementations with their software partners, because the time to value, these groups, I get it. There's a lot of, well, hey, when are we going to be up and going? When are we going to be up and going? And it took a while to sell, I'm not going to lie, internally and externally, that, hey, there's a time to value here that's not in the tool, and that's okay. There's a time to value in just immediately having somebody stop us and walk us through these processes and really pull them out of our heads, or identify this one is non-existent, but here's how it should look in the future. It has been my favorite thing I've gotten to do in my day-to-day in a while, was sit with contractors and really get to discuss processes and define what a process really means. And happy to share this. We've shown examples in the past, but it is a cool exercise to get to witness, because to your point, it provides busy contractors, busy leaders of these companies an excuse to say, now let's stop and finally acknowledge and dig into this piece of the business.
And it can be a painful experience for a contractor because they don't have answers. And they have that oh shit moment. But they're going to get help with their processes
and they're fixing
in current and future states. So it is very beneficial.
And I know for me, like it's a shot to my pride, right? Like, hey, well, we're a successful business, I guess you would say. And it's like, oh man, I don't have process. Like, you don't want to admit that.
It's okay. Transparency is one of our core values.
It is really hard to say.
Say it with hushed tone.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
And I always have to joke. We kick off these workflow mapping calls, as we call them. And I always have to reiterate, remember everyone, we're in the nest. This is a safe place.
Yeah.
You can be transparent and open with us, and we'll do the same with you. And here's the best part. Most of the time, the guys and gals that think their processes are the absolute worst, they're nowhere near. We've seen it.
It's
heard
amazing.
it all.
Yeah.
And usually the ones that think they're the worst, trust me, you're some of the better ones. And that's okay. Even the worst of the worst, like, guess what? You're doing something about it.
Yeah.
You're in the right place. You're doing the right things. You mentioned too, like, oh yeah, there are some companies out there that do have their processes mapped, and I think that's great. There's a construction technologist that I respect. He went from operations, went into a VP of technology kind of role, and he mentioned, he goes, one of my daily jobs is to point out to the operational leaders and to the business leaders that, hey, we do have processes and we do have tools in this area, and it's time to dredge up an audit. The processes are old. They were written, in your article, you hit on this too. They were written 20 years ago. Are they really still accurate?
Yeah, that's the point I put in the article. Is like, because I'm an 80s kid, right? So like I grew up with VHS, right? And and now it's like, imagine watching Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, and like manually rewinding your show, right? Nobody does that. But I mean, if we took the process of watching movies, and we carried it to the digital, it would just be silly. So, and then even newer companies, though, like even younger companies or people who are just starting out and stuff like that, like your processes might be influenced by those older people, because you're going into these peer groups and, hey, this is the way we do it. So you're modeling your processes after their processes, which is just following the VHS tape, And so, it's just that this whole section is just embracing the fear, or overcoming the fear and embracing the change, right?
Yeah.
Like, just stop and reflect, and you should be auditing every so often, to
But-
make.
Hey, be kind. Rewind.
Yeah.
That term is still around.
Yeah.
But
And don't forget to update your
yeah.
locator. Right?
Yeah. But to your point, I do. It's having the old processes and such like that, embracing the change. That's what you said, embracing the change. And we hear this all the time. I get it. When we say it, I hope what we're able to at least like actually also provide on top of that is when we say embrace the change, we can visually see, take this process from process A and go to process B. This person is going to do it this way now. This meeting is going to become this. And we're going to use this tool instead of this one. You can actually see the step-by-step change that we're asking you to embrace if you're going through with a software partner that helps you identify that. And if you're not, I'm happy to share how you can take this to a software group and say, this is how we do it. Walk it through with us.
And you're creating the foundation
Yes.
to become consistent across the board and bring the discipline that you need so every project is treated on the same way. And it becomes habit after a while. The other thing that happens when you get to that point is if the process is flawed, it will become very apparent quickly. And you're either going to ditch it or you're going to modify it. This makes you stronger as you go through this and you do it repeatedly. You're going to get better and better at it all the time. And you'll be best of class after a while if you really are dedicated to it, because there's nothing like that.
The other thing with process too, though, it puts out that layer of accountability, right?
Yes.
This is how we do it, and you did not do it this way. And
There's no question.
There's no
right?
question,
Yeah.
right? And then it's like, okay, why didn't you do it this way? Oh, you forgot. Okay, that's okay.
That's
Or,
right. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? This process is too complicated for me, and I get lost in it. Okay, well, let's maybe come up with a checklist
Right.
for
Let's
halfway
find out
through.
why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's like, I don't know. That's a big thing too.
I always joke in the military, like everything has written standard operating procedures. Your SOPs are everywhere, from the way you're supposed to wear your hat to the way you're supposed to prepare your field ration meal. I joke in the SOP, it's use a rock or something to prop up the heater. And I mean, it's just, but it provides that level of documentation is how that organization has slowly over hundreds of years now improved on processes and improved on technology and standard operating procedures, because it had to get documented somewhere. And there's entire branches essentially of the service that a lot of their roles and responsibilities are analyzing, improving, and updating said processes. But even in our own business, I'm not talking about taking a militaristic approach. I'm just talking about, to your point, people just don't know how they're supposed to be doing something. And that's just as much of a fault to your team and to your subordinates, so to speak, by not providing hey, here's how we usually go about this and how you should do your job. It's just as much of a gift to be able to say, start with this, do this at a minimum, and you're going to be successful, and I feel guilty as a business leader hiring people into my organization and not being able to say, hey, this is how we do it and follow these specific steps. And so we're doing our own like self-reflection and process overhaul. And it's anybody, it's in any business, not just, construction. It's just something that construction is now just getting the technology and some of the different tools that are revealing these second and third order practices and effects. And so that's why I'm happy that these things are finally coming. And we have friends that we've worked with in the past that help bring that from other industries in. And that's another thing that I believe, technology can help, is they can bring people from outside the industry and then put them in the same room with you for you to take what you want from their outside experiences. I want to summarize real quick. That was a lot. We've been talking about a lot of different stuff.
For a while now,
But in the grand scheme of things, we've got a real world case study that I want you to also kind of talk through. But the article itself really, I think, does a great job of forming or identifying an ideology or an option of a way to think about going into tech adoption, going into where you should even consider tech adoption, and then as you're going through it, just how to think of it while you navigate those waters. Whether you've been in those waters before or whether it's your first time voyaging out, it's there's a thought and an ideology that I do believe you should take. And reading your article just nailed it. I think it just nailed it. But it's from getting the mindset to navigating technology and software in general, and then our big three: establish your culture before the evaluation, preferably, or during it. Get that culture set right. Have the right perception. Partner with the right softwares. View them as a team member in this endeavor. And then number 5, and to the last of the big 3, process. That is, I today at this conference we're at, they did a poll, and contractors were looking for process over even tech. They're looking for now, what is the best process? What is the industry secrets, the secret sauce? And again, it's one of those share it. We're all doing it, But take us in real quick to this real world case study, because I think this is a way to kind of illustrate what we've been talking about.
Yeah. So contractor reached out to me, and the software reached out to me and said, "Hey," but we call it in the case study, we call it, a failed marriage, right? And so they were both struggling. They're in implementation, and they were just struggling. And I have multiple stories about this, but this is like my most favorite one. And so basically, we're all sitting in a Zoom meeting, and I said, you guys aren't going to like what I tell you. And they said, okay, well, what's your recommendations? I was like, you guys need to split up. You guys need to take a break. You guys you're not set up for each other. This is a lose-lose situation. There's no way that this is going to work out. And oh my gosh, the room just blew up.
This is a big contractor.
Big contractor, big software company, right? And nobody wanted to hear it. Everybody was like extremely mad. And they said, we've spent so much time and money from both sides, contractor and software. And I'm like, I get it. But you guys are not aligned. You guys do not line up. I'm like, you guys it's just going to fail, and you're both going to hate each other even more. And I was like, let's take a break and revisit this thing in 6 months. And so along with this article, the first thing that went wrong was culture, right? So the contractor said, okay, we're going to pilot this in one of our small regional offices. Well, okay, so once again, now you're putting all this on this one regional office. And so, but they don't want to take charge of this, because now they're going to have a loss. Maybe the office isn't going to look as good. They just totally set them up to fail. And testing technology on a small scale is very important, and it's a good decision. But at the same time, to put it all onto one small group of people and ask them to do everything, especially a regional office that is not at the corporate level, that knows all the internal workings, right? Like, they don't know how the ERP system works and all that other stuff. So, I mean, they have an idea, but not at that level. And so culture, that's where they failed right off the bat. And so then the next part was perception. Like, they gave this to mid-level management because they just thought it was a tool, whatever, just come over here. And so the corporate office would never actually buy into it, and would never actually bring that software company in and let them talk on a high level. They just perceive this stuff as just another tool. Oh, here's a tool for a regional office, and if they can make it work, then we'll spread it out, company wide.
But to your point, the perception with the tech company and the construction company clearly also wasn't aligned. They had to bring in an arbitrator.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a pretty clear sign that the two companies never truly viewed each other as partners. Instead, it was, and we see this a lot. It's not worth my time to jump on that call. No, I don't want to talk to them. I don't have time for that. And that perception continues to stay skewed.
Yeah, and so that was just those two right there. I already saw that there was failures, and then that company had processes. And that company had probably one of the better processes that I've seen. But back to my VHS story, this company is 75 years old. So their processes were written in like the 50s. So like, and they were great for paper, and they transitioned really well to Excel and spreadsheets, right?
Yeah.
But that system never would carry over to software. It just was not capable of doing it. And, and I told him, I said, guys, it took you 75 years to get to this point with your processes. What makes you think you're going to change that overnight or in a couple months?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you guys have a lot of reviewing of your processes and stuff like that, and to see how it's digital. And, a true partnership, if they had the first two down, their software would have been a true partner, and they could have worked on those processes together, right? And then they also could have come to the realization that, hey, maybe this is not a quick sell that we're going to hit our quarterly numbers. Like, this is going to be a long transition, and it's probably going to take a year maybe to implement, maybe even 2 years, which no one wants to hear that, but that's what they needed to do. Like,
no one wants to hear it, but when you're transparent with one another, and I'll put this out there too, because I get it all the time. I'll get called into, someone starting an implementation. It's like, yeah, hey, they're not happy with the fact that this could be like a 1 to 2 quarter thing. I go, okay, happy to jump in and explain why. And you get into those conversations, and it reaches that moment of like, well, I know that's what you normally recommend, is this is going to be 1 or 2 quarters, but like, we're really tech savvy. We're going to move fast.
Yeah.
We're going to really, really move this thing forward. And it's like, great. You can rush to failure all you want, but that goes back to the perception and partnering with technology. When you hear a construction technology person, recommend, hey, it usually looks about this for the successful companies, unless you have a compelling reason. And even then, I would say, like, plan on that, align your expectations on that, and then try to win by going, like, if it comes in sooner, great, but align your expectations there rather than trying to pressure and be like, no. But let's force it this way instead, because I got a big project kicking off, or we need the budget or whatever. And it's like, again, your ideology is wrong. Partner with the group, set the expectations, and let it take its natural toll. Or you just rush into a scenario like this.
Yeah.
Like, why is it still not up yet? Rah, rah, rah. Well, by now we could have been up, but we rushed to failure. Now we're rework. We always hear about rework and how bad it is. Like, that's the same thing in tech. You can have rework in tech when you don't do it right the first time. You have one quote here. I want to end with this one. Is we are all capable of change. Every process or workflow can, and eventually must, be adapted and scaled to the times. And I think we're seeing this today in our industry. Everyone is constantly hearing about tech, innovation, rah, rah, rah. And it's out there. We get it. But that's why I think this article is timed perfectly. And I can see what drove you to write it. And I just appreciate you sharing it with us and helping us, letting us help kind of, bring it out to the light, is that every contractor is different. Every problem that every contractor is trying to solve is slightly different. There are some core denominators, similar threads, but in the end, we all have different types of projects. Our companies are all different. We have different people. We all have different processes. Every technology provider is truly providing a different tool that's slightly tailored to a different solution, rah, rah, rah. But this ideology, to me, is something that is consistent and could be constant and can apply across the board. And that's why I'm so excited that we get to just be a part of kind of sharing it with this great industry. So thank you sincerely again. Always appreciate your time, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you guys. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with this article is just to get the information out there to help contractors, right? That's what it is, because I could live in my box and just keep working and doing what we do, but at the end of the day, we've got to help each other,
Right.
And so that's the biggest reason. I appreciate you guys taking this, reviewing it, talking it through with me, and bringing the software, version of it. Because, like I said, I'm a contractor. I don't know what software is going through, and that's the big key on partnership, so we can be working together. And so I appreciate the time and everything else.
With that, this was Construction is Hard.
But it doesn't have to be.
If you'd like to find more of this content, this article that we're referencing, Toby's article, you can go to rivet.work, rivet.work. I think we've got this stuff on all the social medias. Allison, what we've got it on Apple Podcasts, all of them, all the stuff, all the technology.
Got 'em all.
On YouTube, etc. So, anywho, we appreciate everybody's support. Those of you that listen in, we're just kicking off season 2 here in 2024. So we'll be hoping to bring you more. Just get a load of this shit. Just get a load of this stuff that's like really stuff that we think can actually cut through the BS and is worth you taking back to your company and saying, hey, here's something I can actually take home and do something with. And thank you for providing it. So
Thank you, Toby.
with that, thank you all. We'll talk to you soon. We are here to talk about workforce management. Why is it so inconsistent?
Construction's hard.